Hey, you're listening to Stop the Scroll, a social media marketing podcast, and I'm your host, Heidi Schmidt. I'm a social media strategist and agency owner with over 15 years of marketing experiences helping businesses grow online. We'll be diving into what you need to know so that you can show up confidently online without the overwhelm. Get your notebook ready to jot down some amazing marketing gems, and let's dive into it. Welcome back to another episode of Stop the Scroll. I'm your host, Heidi Schmidt, and I'm really excited today. I have my first ever interview, which is super exciting. I have a slew of guests that I'm going to be bringing on in the coming weeks. Today, we are talking with Barb Davids, and she is the founder of Compass Digital Strategies. And she's a digital marketer with over 25 years of experience. And she's not here for the fluff. Her passion lies in providing direct, results-oriented digital marketing solutions, which we all want. And she has helped her clients get 256% more search engine traffic, organic search traffic, 22% more leads, and 51% more sales from Google organic search. So we're going to be talking a little bit about SEO today and all the fun things. And when Barb is not behind her laptop, she's out running with her dog Stone in whatever city she's at the time. Welcome, Barb. So you're a digital nomad, am I right?
I am. Yes. Thank you for having me. I am a digital nomad. So right now I'm sitting in Portland, Oregon, and I just started this journey like last August. That was why I started my business. Actually, I wanted to be able to work anytime, anywhere. And this was before even everybody was forced to work at home or thought that could even be possible, really. And that was like, this started about 2018, 2019 when I started my own business and was still sitting like at home. I wasn't doing the nomading quite yet, but then last August came the universe like yelling at me. So I just decided, okay, I guess I'm going to be doing this. So I just up and went out and learning a lot along the way with logistics and things. But right now I'm sitting in Portland. And then this next week, I'll be traveling between Portland to Minneapolis and stopping in a city where I've only a developer that I work with. And I've only seen her on Zoom. So I'll get to meet her in person, which is super fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. So you do a lot with Google organic SEO stuff. Can you tell a little bit about what exactly you do for clients? Like, is it blogging? You have some amazing results. So how do you kind of get those results for your clients?
It is I'll give you the short answer. It's primarily through blogging. So organic search and mainly Google, right? That's the big provider out there, is looking for answers to people's questions, right? Somebody types something in and then it's going to pull up a web page, not a whole website, but a web page. So it's going out and looking for all kinds of like websites that have the answer potentially to somebody's question. And it can only look for, in theory, one page. It can only serve up one page at a time in a list. And so by doing that, when you're doing blogs, that helps Google to be able to say, oh, this person knows about this subject and has something specifically for that. So I'm going to serve that up. And I think one of the things that people maybe get wrong is it's not just about creating a website and then letting it sit there. Like just having the website doesn't really give anything for Google to understand the breadth of knowledge that people have about their product or service.
I feel that. And I feel like people have started using social media a lot in the way that they use Google. Like if you hear about how the younger generations are using like TikTok and Instagram kind of as search engines, what's kind of the most surprising strategy that always seems to work, but most people overlook? And I tell my clients often, I'm like, you need to be creating long form content for not only like to have something to promote on social, but like, what is that surprising SEO strategy that always seems to work that most people would be like, I don't have the time for, or they just overlook in their overall marketing strategy?
It's actually, I'm going to go back to the blogging, but there's different ways that you can do it. So it doesn't have to be an everyday thing. It doesn't have to be a weekly thing. If you do it just once a month, even, that can make a big impact. And then going back and refreshing is the thing that people, I think, forget about the most. And that does and can make a difference. So one of my clients, she had a blog post out there and it was probably a good, I don't even know, like 2-3 years old or something. And we refreshed it. We gave it some new information. We updated some images. We did little tweaks here and there. And she actually doubled the amount of leads that she got from that page. Now, I'm going to put the splat with this, like a disclaimer asterisk thing, and say that it's a a service that didn't get like hundreds already, right? So she was getting like 12 in the beginning for the year, and the following year she got 24. So it was a big deal for her, the 50% and the low numbers, because it was significant, like it's a one-to-one service type of thing. So it was really impactful. But I think that might be one of the bigger ones, is being able to refresh a blog and be able to make an impact that way. They don't just sit out there, they get kind of stale and they need to be refreshed. So
That's super interesting. Yeah, I feel like that goes along with just overall repurposing content. I talk a lot with my clients about that. They're like, "Well, I don't know. I don't have anything. I don't have anything going on." And it's like, "Well, we can repurpose what we did like a year ago, especially if we got good
right.
engagement on social media."
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the myths that people think about SEO that you tend to debunk when you first talk to your clients, because I feel like with SEO, people think that it's so much work to blog, but like you said, you don't have to do it every day or every
Mm-hmm.
week. But what are some of those myths that you like to debunk with your clients?
I think probably the biggest one is the cost of it. It doesn't have to be costly for sure. There are so many different ways that you can go about it and the different strategies. So, for example, you could just blog once a month and you could write yourself, and you can even repurpose that. That would be like your topic or your pillar. And I know you do talk about a lot with repurposing. If you create one long blog post and then cut it up, you could have content for like 6 months to a year, depending on how long the blog post is. So, is it costly? No, you write this one blog post and then you create all these pieces, and that's super cheap in relative terms, right? Like it's mostly your time and or some outsourcing, but that one is a big one. You don't have to hire these big companies and spend thousands of dollars on Google Ads in order to get organic traffic. There's some of those myths out there that you have to do Google Ads at the same time, and that's not the case. I think some people think it's a lot more technical than it is. That's one of the things I think that scares people a lot. They think they have to go in and change things behind the scenes or do this some magical thing to your website. And really all it is making sure that you have page titles on your pages, which usually come from your headlines. So there's not much that you have to do with that, but just think about it that they're impactful. So whoever's seeing your headline, it's not only that they're seeing the headline on the page, but that's what shows up in Google. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about, okay, if somebody's typing in social media manager, that when they see the search result, it's impactful enough that they're going to want to like step into the website. It's kind of like window shopping. You want them to be compelled to click that particular result. And then the page description, usually in your website, like WordPress mostly, or what are your clients mostly on? Is it WordPress or a different platform?
Goodness, they're all over the place between Squarespace, WordPress, Wix. Those
Okay.
are kind of like the top three that my clients have used for website platforms.
Okay. Yeah, there's usually a spot for a page description, and it's like 160 characters or less, and that's the piece that shows up in Google. So focusing on those two things are probably the most impactful, because when they do show up in Google, you want to, yeah, make sure that people want to click it. So, and then in terms of other debunking myths, I think it's more than just that, the organic search. You can also get it from referrals. So there's different methods and different strategies. You can get it from other websites. So people clicking back to your website from mentions or articles or something like that. Another one is guest posting. So that's another way to improve your search engine optimization. So if you have a specific topic that you're passionate about, and there's a magazine, for example, that talks about that same thing, you can offer to speak or to write on their website. And then you have a bio, usually at the bottom, and that bio will link back to your website. So people may want to find out more about you. So there's more than just like one set path to getting more organic traffic.
As far as link building, what are some, aside from, guest posting and getting those kind of referral links, what do you recommend as strategies to do that? I know I had a client a couple of years ago who really wanted to try to build their links. I was like, I'm not an expert in that. So, but I'm curious as to, best practices with SEO are always changing. What do you recommend for building those links? Because I know they're kind of big trust builders as far as SEO.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I am going to probably break some hearts. There's no easy answer for it. There's like no easy way. So there are a lot of companies that will allow you to purchase backlinks. The challenge with those is that they don't stay out there forever. most of the time, and or they are so cost prohibitive for a small business, it's just ridiculous. They can cost hundreds of dollars just for one backlink.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of places will try to guarantee something from like guaranteed can't even happen. But if they guarantee from places like Forbes or New York Times, that kind of thing, it's probably like in a paid partnership between the two people. And those are technically frowned upon from Google. Now, those two names are pretty big. So probably Google doesn't even care that they have a paid partnership. But if you're purchasing backlinks, and let's say you go to a company and they say, we'll give you 500 backlinks for $500 guaranteed in 1 week. It sounds great. But if you do that and it does happen, Google might see that and just see that that's spammy. Like that's a non-natural way of obtaining backlinks. And you want to do it in the most natural manner as possible. And that takes work and time, just like all of the other marketing pieces in our business. I found the most impactful way, the most quickest of the ways to do it, even though it's not necessarily quick and maybe not for everybody, is things such as podcasting and or partnerships. So for example, if you go together, like you see sometimes a bunch of people get together and put together like a conference or something, a digital conference, and then you have all of these people working together and they're all building links back and forth, and that is very natural. Now, because it's a timed conference, it might not stay out there forever, but it's one way to do it. Podcasting is a great way just because if you can get on as a guest, you don't have to do a podcast, but you can get yourself on as a guest. And then the people who are hosting the podcast will give a link back to your website. And those look pretty natural just for the sheer nature of how podcasts work and the naturability of them. Not everybody can just create a podcast like through AI or through spammy ways of doing it. And so that's another way to do it. And also the guest posting is another way to do it. There's paid, there's non-paid, but those are the most natural, and or just reaching out. That's the one that's the hardest. And that's what a lot of backlink companies started with, was just reaching out, and there's different methods of doing it. But it takes a lot of time because you're going and looking for opportunities. Let's say if you're a social media manager, maybe there is a web designer that mentioned something about social media. And you can go talk to them and say, hey, I have this article that could help supplement what you're talking about. Would you mind giving me a backlink? If you find it helpful to your people, you can link back to my website. That would be considered a natural backlink. So, but it of course takes time to go find those resources and then send out the emails and then follow up and that kind of thing. So that was a pretty long answer. I hope that helps answer your question.
No, it does. And then I kind of want to touch on something that you and I kind of started talking about before we jumped on here, is how is AI impacting SEO these days? And I know a lot of people are talking, I feel like there's been a big revival of people getting back into blogging. I'm seeing a lot of people be like, blogging because you don't own your social media. So it's one of those kind of like owned marketing avenues.
Mhm.
But how is AI impacting search engine results? How are you adapting and setting those expectations with clients? Because now on like Google search, you see AI results at the very top and everyone wants to be number one. So how are you competing, and how are you kind of adjusting those expectations for your clients?
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I push a lot is not to panic, because things are ever changing. So there's no way to emphatically 100% know what to change or not to change in order to show up in those AI results, because we'll never know 100% the rankings. We can infer some things like page title, what's on the page. There's certain areas on the page that you can update to help Google understand what the page is about. But the AI overview results, for example, those only show up some of the time. They don't show up for all of the searches quite yet. And I did a spot check on one of my clients in particular with a couple of keywords that I would have expected that to show up, and they're not showing up yet. So I think right now it's to not panic and think that there's one thing that's going to make you show up there, because there isn't, just like the regular organic results at the bottom. And I would encourage people too to think about this idea is the AI results and the AI in general, they get their data from somewhere. It has to come from somewhere. It doesn't come out of thin air yet, but it has to come from somewhere. If somebody's looking for a social media manager, AI is not going to just generate information, because the person is looking for a person. And so it's going to go out and look for that person. And so if there's not a website to go find, how does it know what to pull in? So the website is very important to have. And as long as it optimizing, I feel like, is a taboo word. Like, what do you optimize? And it's really just making sure it's structurally sound. It is not slow to get to. It loads great on mobile. It looks pleasing to the eye, and it's actually helping the person or your audience. So if they come to your website and it looks helpful, that's great. If you have a bunch of long blog posts with a bunch of the same keywords or like surface level information, that might not be optimized. So when the word optimized comes up, it's not necessarily just like the technical stuff. So it's the information. So that's where AI gets everything basically. And there isn't anything that I have read yet, even with the big Google leak that came out. Everybody was all up in arms about, oh my gosh, they're telling us all the information. And they really weren't. What it was so far that I've read, and everything changes daily. So depending on when you're listening to this, I don't want anybody to think that this hasn't changed yet, but the information in that leak it was confirming of some of the information that Google actually kept, but it didn't necessarily confirm, although in theory it kind of does, that they're using certain things, such as time on site. So there was a lot of back and forth with Google and the SEO industry, whether or not when somebody landed on your website, if they stayed there, did that impact your search results? And everybody was saying it does. And this document basically just provided a sort of confirmation that Google actually has the data. So why wouldn't they be using it? So it might be something like that. But there's always been the idea that if they go off of Google and they don't come back, Google can see that, right? So inherently, they're saying the person that they last visited, that website they last visited, satisfied the results. It satisfied what the searcher wanted. So that was a good search result, which put sort of a notch into that page saying this is a good page. So that's my feeling on the AI results.
Interesting. No,
Yeah.
it's fascinating because everyone's talking about AI and, I use it more as a tool for efficiency. I don't use it because you have to fact check things. And as far as creating content with AI, is that something that you would encourage your clients? Like, hey, how I want to use AI to create a blog post. And I tell my clients, like, if you're going to use AI, make sure you personalize it,
Mhm.
add your touch, add your expertise. Do your clients ask you about that? Like, how do I use AI to simplify things while still also, putting out content because these are my goals?
Mhm.
How do you kind of coach them through that?
So a lot of my clients actually use copywriters, personal copy, like real human copywriters, and mostly because I do push that. I think it is more personal. I feel like the copywriter knows the client better and knows, like I even have a copywriter for mine. She knows my brand. And also because I hate writing, I can't stand it. And sure, I could go to the AI and have them create something for me, but it's not going to, no matter how hard I try to put it in AI tone or talk to it to tell it to be me, I still don't feel like it's going to. Like I don't think it's going to catch the nuances as much as I've played with it. Like there's just still things off. And by doing a professional copywriter, it literally takes the thinking out of it for me. I barely have to look at anything because I know that she is writing well. I've reviewed them in the past, not to mention the time that it takes to train the AI tool. And I just don't have that. Like I would rather just give it to somebody to do. The ones that are using AI to create blog posts, I encourage using it more for outlining or for
Hmm.
ideation versus actually doing the blog post because they come out so the same, like the same words all the time, the
Hmm.
same tone all the time. And that might be because it's not being trained quite yet either. However, the way I think about it is it's again getting its information from somewhere else. So for it to come up with a
Hmm.
new idea is rare, in my opinion, or at least so far that I've seen.
Interesting. Talking about copywriters a little bit. I know there's so many services out there that have like actual copywriters that you can hire. For a business who might be on a budget, who feels like it's out of reach to hire a copywriter to do blogging, like, hey, I absolutely want to do this. How do you kind of recommend copywriters? Like, you have a client who has budget constraints or they're a small business and think that like copywriters are out of budget. How do you kind of alleviate those concerns? Are there services that you recommend, or what's kind of your solution for that?
Mm-hmm. Goes across the board. So there's definitely a solution for anybody who's looking to do some copywriting and get it out of their hands. And one of them that I would recommend is convert with content. I think they do a decent job for the price that they are. And the thing that I like about them, I don't know what their back end is like, to be frank. So it's quite possible they're using AI to do the things. But what I do like about them is that they work with me because I do this for one client, they work with me to change things. So that's the nice thing about it. So we can add our own take and our own views and our own personal aspects of the business to the blog post. So it's not just coming out like a cookie cutter blog post. It's a great way to start though and keep it in budget. And then just working with different copywriters across the board, of course, they go from, I would say like anywhere from $40 to $100 per blog post is what I've seen. And it can go all the way up to 500 or 600 per blog post. Now, the higher end ones, you're going to get a lot better quality. You're going to get a lot meatier piece. You're going to get one that has research. You're going to get one that may even have interviews, like goes the whole gamut and even gives you images and does the whole thing from start to finish, which is a great thing. And if you're only doing that once a month, maybe that's in budget. The cheaper ones are not going to give you the quality that you might want or expect from your business. That's kind of the kicker, right? Like depending on how that works. But it can go across the board. And the other thing I think you could do, which I used to do when I was a photographer, I was a fitness photographer for a little while, is you could try and do trade services. So if, let's say, you're a social media manager and you need a copywriter, maybe you guys can find a way to have comparable packages so that you're matching and then you can trade services. That might be something too.
I feel like I listened to another podcast that you were on and you kind of dove into the fitness photographer aspect. And I find that so, so fascinating, like how you went from fitness photography into SEO. Like, can you touch on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been in digital marketing for like a number of years, and I went to do professional fitness photography as a sort of a side hobby. I didn't think I was actually going to do it full time because I like digital marketing so much, but I went to go do my own digital marketing for the photography business. And even being in the industry, it was so funny how I was like going down a rabbit hole. I couldn't figure out like, okay, well, what do I do for this industry specifically? Because it's so different in not different, but like there's more images involved. So there is a little bit of difference in terms of trying to show up in image search or just the regular search. So I went to networking events to meet with other photographers, and then they were looking for help. So I helped them a little bit, projects one-on-one, and then things sort of snowballed and I started working with them. And then I thought I was only going to do photographers for my digital marketing because of that. But then other people started reaching out and was like, oh, can you help me with my small business? And essentially SEO, the core of it, the foundation of it is essentially the same. Just the tactics might be different, or maybe the path to whatever you're doing could be different from industry to industry. And based off of, what energy levels we have as business owners, sometimes like not everybody's going to do a podcast like we're doing. Like it does take a little bit of time and energy and effort. And then there's also like video, and then there's blog, there's all the different pieces. But so yeah, then it just snowballed, and that's how my business started. And that in combination with the working anytime, anywhere that I wanted to do, they sort of came around the same time. And that's kind of what snowballed this whole idea.
That's amazing. I noticed that you had something called a sweet flow. Am I?
Yeah, it's a sweet framework. It's
I
a sweet
love
framework.
that.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I joke because it's a sweet framework, but it's literally sweet, SWEET. And the name finally hit me because I have the podcast is Small Business Sweet Spot. And then there's a group membership that I have that's called the Small Business Sweet Spot. I just named them all the same. It's much easier for marketing, right? And for my energy levels. But the sweet framework is a way to come at your SEO and get more organic traffic in a much more, I guess, logical way. Because I like tactical. I like to know what the heck I'm doing and when and how and where. And so this allows like sort of a step process. So S is for select your target keyword. So you do keyword research, and it's not as hard as people maybe think it is. It's definitely, I think, overthought a little bit. But basically, you're thinking about, okay, your audience, what are they typing in? Then you figure out which word best approaches your service or your product. And then that's your target keyword. And then you're going to work on a blog post. So the W is work on a blog post. And there are certain things that you can do in that post to ensure, maybe not ensure is not the right word, but to improve the likelihood of you showing up on first page. And just high level, that's putting the target keyword in your page title, which is your headline usually, the page description, And what I like to do is the first 100 words, put the keyword in there. And then every 200 or 300 words after that, as it fits naturally. So if you're talking about that topic, it's probably going to show up, but it's kind of like a checklist to say, oh, okay, it is here, just to make sure that it's throughout the blog post. And then optimizing images, making sure that the file name has the keyword in it and the image alternative text. And I could go into so much detail, but I don't want to be respectful of the time. So I'll just give super high level for now. But if there's any questions, you can know it, and people can hit me up after too. But a lot of the times when we download images for our websites and things, we take and just re-upload it back to our website with nothing. Well, what happens is there's this really weird file name that goes with it. It's like gobbledygook3947.jpg or something.
hmm
And so when that goes up, if you can rename it before sending it up with the target keyword, it's just one more area that can help Google kind of understand what's going on the page. And then the image alternative text is usually called image alt text. And that is first and foremost with accessibility screen readers, it's reading that text to describe to somebody what the image is about. But if you can fit the keyword in there naturally, then that's a great another spot to put it in. But it shouldn't be forced, because first and foremost, it's about the readability and the accessibility piece of it. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you can go through as well. The first E is enhance with summaries. And that is the page title and the description. And there's certain words, we touched on it a little bit
hmm
before, of how you can do it in a certain way and want to make people click in to your website to read more about the product or service. And then the second E is establish trust. So there's a whole acronym. So I had the acronym suite. Google has an acronym, everybody has an acronym, but there's an acronym called EAT. It's EEAT. And those are expertise, experience, authority, and trust. And those are signals that Google looks for to help it understand that it's a credible website. And the person that's talking about whatever they're talking about is experienced. They have expertise. It shows that they know what's happening. It's not like a scammy website. So there's different signals, like your bio at the end of a blog post. That's one example of showing credibility for Google. Putting a contact page, or putting like, if you have something for sale on your website, making sure that there's some sort of badge that says this is safe, like BB, the Better Business Bureau, or
hmm
something like that. And then the last T is tell your audience, or tell the world. I changed it to tell the world instead of tell your audience. So tell the world. So you want to be able to push it out to all the channels. And then even like with you with the repurposing, this is where this comes in handy. You can repurpose it, you can distribute it throughout your socials, even over time. So even after the first time that you put this blog post out, you're going to want to do it again and again and again, just to keep it going out there. Because if you don't, then how do people know about it?
It's true. It's
Yep.
true. I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, if you're putting out content, like you need to be pushing it out to
Mm-hmm.
email, to social. Like, there's no point in just creating it and expecting it to just like live there, because SEO is a long game and
Yeah,
traffic doesn't come
absolutely.
overnight. Just kind of touching back, because I feel like this is so fascinating. You talked about refreshing content before. Tell me a little bit about how you encourage your clients and how you kind of keep content fresh and engaging and keep those topics rolling when it's like, how many more times can I talk about X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, that's a good one. It is difficult sometimes. And I will say it varies from day to day. You have to be in a good mood for sure, because otherwise you just get frustrated and you're like, what the crap am I going to write about? Like, it is tough. It is intentional spending time and thinking about, okay, what can I write about next? And I think a lot of the times this is where tangential content comes in. So it's the stuff that might be in and around your area of expertise, but not directly related to it. So here's a great example that I love using. So Death Wish Coffee, they sell coffee. And they wrote a blog post about fitness and like a workout routine. But what they did was they talked about whether or not it's even good to have coffee before you work out or after you work out. So they were able to tie fitness and get in front of fitness people with their coffee. So that's a great way to expand and write about a topic that somebody might be interested in that isn't explicitly right there. So I don't think that the article, I have to remember, I'll have to go back to it. It wasn't about the coffee. So it wasn't answering the question, should you have coffee? Because they probably did that one 20 years ago, whenever they started. But This one was more about the fitness and the workout routine and how it impacts. So I think that's a good way. I don't have any others off the top of my head, but that's one way to expand out, I think, the categories of what you're talking about and spending time going down that rabbit hole actually on purpose. So spending time to like go to other websites, even people outside of your industry, I think are really good to go and find some ideas on too. And sometimes you can even just look at your existing blog post and think, okay, I could actually dive into that one quite a bit more specifically and get really, really granular on it. And then that would be like another blog post. You could create lists. So there's different types of blog posts and different types of content to create. So maybe if you're out of ideas, maybe it's taking one of the better performing blog posts and creating a video on it, or creating a list of your top 10 blog posts, or creating an e-guide or an ebook. So maybe it's just looking at not the topics, but how they are distributed or in what format they're distributed.
Got it. And then kind of touching on that, do you have favorite tools that you use for SEO for like keyword research? Like I know there's SEMrush and all sorts of different tools out there that kind of help give some of that SEO analytics. And for the everyday business owner, they're probably not going to deep dive into those analytics, but do you have any tools that you use to kind of help find those keywords or that you would recommend that would be easy for a business owner who's like, I've got to do this myself? Like, what can I use to really be successful at this?
I have a couple different ones actually. So you can choose your own journey, basically, whatever floats your boat and whichever one is easiest to use. I think everybody has their own preferences on, the interface of different tools and things. SEMrush is definitely way expensive. And I feel like it's very overwhelming, to be frank. Like I started using it a long time ago, but now it's gotten to grow into this big old thing, like super big. And it's way more than you need if you're just doing keyword research. I like to use personally, it's called Keywords Everywhere. It's a Chrome extension and it costs $10 and it gives you like, I forget how many credits, but so many credits. I barely even run out of it half the time. And I am doing keyword research all the time. So you could spend just $10 and do a few searches and get what you need and then just turn it off while you're not using it. Because that's one thing that I didn't catch at the very beginning. So you have to remember to turn it off so you're not using all your credits. But that's something a small business owner could use. And it's so easy. So when you do turn it on, you can type in a keyword in Google and right at the bottom of that little circle area, it'll tell you how many searches per month. And then that's in the United States. You can change the country if you want. And then it will tell you what the CPC is, which is the cost per click. So if you were to purchase an ad, it will give you the cost per click that everybody has to do. So if it costs 20 cents for someone to click and see your ad, and the lower the cost per click, the less competition in theory that there is. So you might be able to rank for it much easier than, say, another keyword. And then when it's on there on the right-hand side of your search, it will show you other suggested keywords and their search volume. So super easy to use. The other way that you can do it is without even paying for anything is going into Google, and they call it the alphabet method. So you go to the top and you type in A and then type in a word that's actually near your service or product and use A and then see what comes up. And then go with any keywords that start with B and then see what comes up. But anytime you start typing in there, it does like an auto populate, auto suggest. And those are, in theory, those are searches that people are looking for. So they're very common, highly searched things. So if you're typing in social media manager, anything that comes after that might be another blog post that could be written because people are searching for that. And then at the same time, when you're doing that, there's a box a little bit down and it's called People Also Asked. And those are questions that people are also asking, but maybe not necessarily as much as the ones at the top. And if you click those, it'll continuously keep populating more and more questions like all the time. So those are some good ones. And then another one along the same vein of that People Also Asked, there is a website called peoplealsoasked.com. And what that will do is give it to you in a visual, like the how, the what, the why, the where of the keyword. And I think you get 3 free searches or something like that. So those are some options for some of your folks.
Interesting. I've used keywords everywhere, and it's funny because I think it also has like a social extension. I don't know if I'm thinking of the same tool, but I might be. Where actually, like, if you go to your Instagram page, like it'll tell you like your engagement rate, and Yeah,
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's
I'll
the
have to look at that. That would be
yeah.
fun to see.
Yeah, I've used keywords everywhere. It's a great, great tool. I've never used it for SEO purposes, really. I think kind of starting to wrap up, like kind of taking all of this great information for a business owner who's just kind of, hey, this needs to be a priority for me. Like, how would you tell them to kind of get started? What are some of like the easiest steps that they can take if they're like, I want to start a blog this year. I know that it's important. What would you recommend for someone who's just getting started here?
I think the first thing to do if they're just getting started is to look at what their competitors are doing for their blog posts, just so they can get a visual of kind of how it looks, how it works, and then just start brainstorming ideas. Just write it down like in a Google Sheet or something, what they might like to talk about, and then just do one and publish it and see what happens. And because you can always change them, you can always
Hmm.
modify them, you can always update them. So I think that's the simplest way to get started without, in my opinion, like when I was starting out, like just without the overthinking, like just go ahead and write it and then put it up there and then see what happens.
I love that. I love that. So, how do people get in touch with you? Where are you on social? I think that this was such great information, but how can our listeners kind of follow up with you if they want more of your SEO expertise? Where can they follow you online?
Yep, they can go to compassdigitalstrategies.com. And I also have, when you go there at the very top, there's the handy workbook too. So they can get that sweet framework that I was talking about earlier. So that'll be helpful. And then they can also come to Instagram at Compass Digital Strategies and just ask me any questions they want. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. And I will link to those in the show notes. And thank you so, so much, Barb. I have loved your expertise. Thank you so much for being my first ever guest on here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Stay tuned next week for another great episode of Stop the Scroll with some more helpful digital marketing tips. And follow us on Instagram at Heidi Schmidt Creative. And be sure to leave a review and like and share with all of your friends. Thanks so much.